Merhaba, Yeni İnsan Yayın Evi'nin sevgili dostları, okurları, hoş geldiniz. Bugün 23 Nisan ve bir canlı yayınla daha birlikte karşınızdayız. Bizim için 23 Nisan biliyorsunuz özel bir gün. Ulusal Egemenlik ve Çocuk Bayramı. Bugüne kadar farklı canlı yayınlar yaptık hep. Kimi zaman bağımsız yayın evleriyle konuştuk, kimi zaman çocuk edebiyatı, nitelikli çocuk edebiyatı ile ilgili konuştuk. 23 Nisan'da bu sefer biraz daha farklı, bugüne kadar konuştuğumuz konuların dışında bir çalışma yapmak istedik. Bizim geçen aylarda yayınladığımız bir kitabımız var, Çocuklar Okulu Yönettiğinde. Bu kitap oldukça ilgi çeken bir kitap oldu. Farklı bir okul sistemini anlatıyor. Demokratik eğitimden bahsediyor. Biz de 23 Nisan'da hani hep çocuklara yönetim koltuklarımızı veririz ya, belediye başkanları, başbakanlar, okul müdürleri vesaire. Dedik ki bir gün değil, her gün çocuklar okulu yönetirse ne olur, nasıl olur? Bu deneyimi biraz tartışalım, konuşalım istedik. Ve bu kitabın yazarı sevgili Jim Rietmulder'dan rica ettik. O da bizi sağ olsun kırmadı. Bu canlı yayına, bu söyleşiye katılmayı kabul etti. Bana bu söyleşide onunla birlikte aynı zamanda sevgili arkadaşım Mehmet Ateş de eşlik edecek. Mehmet bizim Çiçeği Burnunda taze yazarlarımızdan biri. Yakınlarda çocuk edebiyatından bir eserini yayınlayacağız. Aynı zamanda kendisi bir alternatif okulda İngilizce öğretmenliği de yapıyor. Dolayısıyla ben ondan da rica ettim. İkimiz birlikte yapalım. Biraz da böyle eğitimcinin, öğretmenin gözünden de sorular soralım istedim. Şimdi izin verirseniz ben Mehmet'i de kabul edersen çok sevinirim. Hepiniz hoş geldiniz tekrar. Bugün katıldığınız için, değerli katkılarınız, bizi yalnız bırakmadığınız için çok teşekkür ediyorum. Ve evet, Jim is here as well. Onu da davet ediyorum. Bu arada yazarımızla konuşma dilimiz İngilizce olacak. Aralarda olabildiğince Mehmet ve ben tercüme yapmaya çalışacağız. Ama bu yayını daha sonra Instagram hesabımıza kaydedeceğiz. Ardından da altyazı ekleyerek tekrar yayınlamaya çalışacağız. Hello Jim, welcome. Lovely to see
Hello,
you here.
Aisha. Can
How
you
are
see
you?
me and hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and see you very well. You can hear us too?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So Mehmet is here as well. He, I think, needs to arrange his camera. Yeah, there he is. Hello Mehmet, welcome.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Nice to see you guys.
So once again, today's subject topic is this beautiful book, Çocuklar Okulu Yönettiğinde, When Kids Rule the School by Jim Rietmulder. Thank you, Jim, for being with us.
My pleasure.
So, Jim, you are the founder of the Circle School, which was established 36 years ago, and which is an example of a democratic school. And you also wrote this book, which is based on your experiences, starting with that school. So
Yes.
do you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
About
First?
myself.
Yeah.
I have a varied background in business, some editorial work, and came to schooling as a teenager. Looking at alternative schools was sort of a hobby of mine as a teenager. I visited a variety of schools. And then that was as a teenager. I then went on into unrelated fields and came back to it in the early 1980s when my wife and I's first daughter was born. We looked at one another and we said, what are we going to do about school for her? And at that point, my wife was a trained teacher in early childhood education. And so we looked at all of the alternatives available in our area. And we found nothing that was satisfying.
Oh my God.
And so we said, we're going to have to do something about this. We connected with a couple of colleagues and founded the Circle School in 1984. So we're in our 40th year now.
Oh my God, it's even more than 35 years.
Yes, I bet. Thank you. Thank you.
And you are now in the schooling business full time, right? I mean, ever since you founded the schools, the circle school, you've been there full time.
Yeah.
No other jobs.
Well, in the early years, we needed somebody to make money to keep the school going. So I was self-employed as a software developer and a management consultant at that point.
Okay.
And then after a few years, then came on full time. In fact, we came to a point where we needed to double our enrollment to make it financially viable. An important part of our mission is to demonstrate the feasibility of democratic schooling and small schooling. And we weren't demonstrating financial viability at that point. So we began a campaign in the early 2000s to double our enrollment. And it turned out we tripled and almost quadrupled our enrollment in a period of 5 years.
Wow.
And discovered that no school should ever try to triple its enrollment in 5 years. It's way too fast. And especially in a school like this, where taking on new students can be disruptive socially and in the culture of the community. And so for a few years there, it was hard to hold the values that we wanted to hold because of an influx of new students. And most of our new students coming from backgrounds. And that meant they were accustomed to being monitored by adults at all times, and they weren't accustomed to being self-directed. And so that led to, it typically now we say it takes, if we have a student arrive at maybe 13 years old and having come from a traditional background, it's probably going to take them a year or 2 years to sort of recover from their past experience and then become assimilated in a new culture with new values. So we're very glad that we grew back then and probably wouldn't set out to double our enrollment that quickly again.
Okay, I see. So to start, for those of us who are not very much accustomed to democratic schools, do you mind telling us a little bit about it as well? Like, is there one fundamental difference of democratic schools from the traditional schooling system, for example? How would you describe that in a brief way?
Yeah, I would say that one of the most fundamental differences is the absence of curricular coercion. That is, in coercion. In traditional schools, both the teachers and the students are required, it is demanded of them that they study certain subjects at certain ages and engage in certain activities and refrain from the things that they might be more interested in studying or doing. So the fundamental difference here might be encapsulated in our phrase, practicing life, which is the name of one of our sort of backbone publications. We say that our model is practicing life. We want to be a place where kids come and live their lives, pursue the things that are of interest and importance to them, pursue the things that give their lives meaning. In some ways, we're trying to be a scaled down version of the world beyond school. And so we're simulating that with kids here have a great degree of self-determination. They have the opportunity to participate in governance and in culture and some of the institutions of the school. They aren't obligated to. So much as adults in the outside world, kids here choose their own way to be in the world. And the idea here is that we don't do kids any favor or society by putting children in a setting in school for 12 years or so that looks so unlike the rest of the world. So we think it's far better if we invite 4-year-olds right on up to be in charge of their own lives, to find out what gives their lives meaning and purpose and pursue that. I would say that the fundamental difference could be captured in the phrase practicing life. We want kids to be here practicing life, their own life.
Okay, I see. So Mehmet, do you have any questions in this respect as a teacher
Yes,
yeah.
Very excited to meet you, Jim. Yeah, there are a lot of questions on my mind. Actually, I'm also working in an alternative school, trying to be alternative school in Izmir. And there are many questions and challenges we are trying to cope with. But the most important point we are always discussing among colleagues and the parents is how can we include all the shareholders of this school. I mean the parents, children. I mean the students and the workers in the school and to create a democratic atmosphere. So, what do you think? What is the key point for bringing all people together in a democratic way? Please consider the different backgrounds of the society and the parents. So some parents may not have this kind of background, a democratic background. They could be a traditional parents with a low level of democracy awareness. So, how do you have such kind of challenge, and how do you cope with it?
That sounds like half a dozen questions all wrapped into one.
Yes,
But
many questions, yes,
sure,
because
here's
I could get you here now, and I can make the most of it.
sure. A couple of comments. First of all, as a democratic school, we think it's crucial to our mission to accommodate families and children from a wide range of backgrounds, a wide range of worldviews, a wide range of aspirations, financial resources, and so on. I mean, if we want to demonstrate the feasibility of this kind of education, we have to be accepting a very broad range of families and children. And these days, democratic nations are in a challenged place to accommodate a wide variety of views. There's more divisiveness. There's many political issues are highly contested. And so the challenge today is greater than it was, say, 30, 40 years ago when we were beginning to include everybody. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is part of the model of education that we're doing and schooling and the idea of practicing life. And that is that unlike more conventional schools, we don't think of the school as being necessarily in collaboration with parents to engineer the education of their children. That is, we want the school to be a place where children can practice independence from home and family. We want them to be experiencing a school setting that is somewhat like the public sphere for adults. And so we want to maintain a certain independence especially because we have a wide range of views among families. We aren't trying to accommodate the wishes of families in exposing their children to certain subjects and activities. It's we want kids to learn to manage their own lives in the world and to learn how to be in the world without necessarily the intimate support of home and family. So that's relevant to your question because we need to have some degree of separation between home and family and school. So, for example, we have a large law book, about 200 laws in it, and everybody, students and staff, are expected to comply with those rules. When someone violates one of our rules, typically they may we call it getting written up, and they may go before what we call our judicial committee, which determines whether they did break a rule or not. And at any rate, students gain accumulate a record of infractions, but we don't typically share that record of infractions with parents. We prefer that children work it out between themselves and the school and their school community, their peers and the adults here, their daily community. Occasionally, when there are serious enough situations, we do engage parents, of course. so that parents are informed of the things that, well, the things that you know that parents would want to be informed of. But the routine violations, we have a rule against leaving messes, for example. And we don't want to bring parents into the picture every time a child leaves a mess. Some of them would be involved every day if we did that. So we do try to maintain a degree of separation between home and family and school. On the other hand, we do want our school community to be inclusive and to have parents feel part of the community as well. And so we do that with, we do regular social events, family events. They may be recreational. Well, this Friday night, for example, we have one of our groups, a group that raises money so that they can do outdoor adventures. That group is sponsoring, catering a dinner, a dinner and then games. And that event will include students and parents and staff and probably some alumni as well, former students. So we have an active program of engaging parents, and we have an open channel of communications with parents. We also do family conferences. When a student first joins the school in the first 2 months, we meet with the family twice. That is ideally the parents and the student and at least one staff member. We give the family and the student feedback about how things are going, and we ask them for feedback. Sometimes we answer questions that come up from any of those parties, and sometimes we develop something of an aspirational plan that the student may have. We also do we call them mid-year conferences. So for students who are not new, maybe in their second year and beyond, we may do a conference midway through the school year with the same sort of thing in mind. Let's review the child's experience at school, and let's review the parents' experience of the school. How are things going for you? And then we talk about the growth that we have seen in the child and some of the aspirations we know that the child has and the parents. And so that's a way that we include families as well. You know, some kids go home and they tell their parents everything that happened all day long, just chatter, chatter, chatter, chatter. And other kids go home and the parents say, "How was your day?" And the child says, "Oh," and that's the end of it. And so some parents are starved for information about what their child's life is like at school, and others have plenty of information. We want the parents to be satisfied with the experience of their children at school too. One of the things we know is that if parents aren't pleased with the way things are going, with the way their child is developing, they're not going to be pleased with the school. It's going to undermine the child's experience of the school. So those are some thoughts in response to your question. And would you tell me the correct pronunciation of your name? I heard Mehmet, but I'm not sure if that was right.
Sure. Yeah, it's Mehmet.
Mehmet.
Mehmet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard it right then. Good. So
It
Mehmet
is well pronounced. Mehmet, yes.
Mehmet.
Yes.
That was an incomplete answer to your question, and I'll be happy to answer follow-up questions, but that was some first thoughts.
Yes, it's.
So thinking about what you've said, we can say that the democratic school system is applicable in any society, regardless
many
of
questions. So next one, yeah.
I heard two questions at once and didn't get either one.
So Mehmet, do you have a question? Your connection seems to be a little poor, so I haven't been able to hear you. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, I would like to ask another question about. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes. You hear me? Yeah. Yeah. Jim, can you hear me, Jim?
Yes, I can.
Tim? Okay, good. So imagine that you are employed by some people, some guides that asking you to open up, to start a democratic school in a non-democratic country. What would you do? What would your reaction be?
That's a double challenge. It's a double challenge. It's tough enough to start any. Actually, it's probably a triple challenge. It's tough enough to start any organization. It's even tougher to start a school, which involves children, parents, and probably money. And it also involves then probably working with values that contrast with the ambient values. If you have families and children who are not accustomed to democratic processes, then you're introducing a whole new set of ideas there too. That's quite a challenge.
So,
So would you refuse it?
Would I refuse it? Well, my wife and I have often said that if back in 1984 we knew what we were getting into, it's hard to say what we would do. I have a friend who started a school in this country who said that starting a school was like you go down to the laundromat where people launder their clothes in these great big washing machines and dryers, and you climb inside the dryer and you turn the machine on and it starts twirling and twirling and twirling and it never stops. And he said being inside that dryer was just what it felt like to start a school. Now, so here the challenges were great here, and frankly, I think now I've worked with a couple dozen of school startup groups, most of them in the U.S. I'm not thinking of any in non-democratic countries at the moment, but I think my experience is that it takes probably a good 10 years for a new school of this kind to hit its stride, to be comfortable with what they're doing here in the U.S. For us at the Circle School, I think it was more like 15 years or so. And even now, after 40 years, one of the things that's noteworthy that keeps us fresh, frankly, is that not a week goes by without something brand new happening that never happened before. And now in the first several years, each time something new happened, we would typically panic. It would cause a great deal of stress. And then after 15 years or so, we came to expect the unexpected. And and now it's actually sometimes it's fun. And I think it definitely keeps us fresh to experience new things. I mean, excuse me, children, of course, are constantly finding new kinds of mischief. And that's kind of fun. But parents, too, find all sorts of new ways to cause mischief.
My God.
So we get used to that. And then the world changes around us.
True.
The young generation now, in fact, I just came out of a meeting a little while ago with two of my colleagues. We are very rapidly trying to sort of catch up. The world has changed around us. The Gen Z, as they're called, the kids who are in their teen years or their 20s. The values are very different. Their expectations of school and of life are very different. They tend to be more sensitive in many ways and more. They require a different kind of a different approach than, say, 30 years ago. And so that's an additional challenge that we will always face, all schools will face, that as the world changes, we need to adapt, but we also need to be very clear about what are our fundamental values and how do we adapt without compromising those fundamental values. And I am happy to say that over 40 years, that some of the core values, all of our core values, we are still able to honor. And now currently we're looking for ways to honor those values while being of better service to today's children.
Great. Just a little refreshment for the ones who have just joined us. This is the book that we're talking about at the moment, Çocuklar Okulu Yönettiğinde, When Kids Rule the School, with the author Jim Rietmulder. Jim, one of our followers just asked a question in the comment section. What they're trying to understand is that at a democratic school, you're obviously taking decisions in a democratic way. So let's assume that you're voting a decision. It's the teachers, the administrative personnel, the students, they all take part in that decision-making process. And let's suppose that 1 out of 10 votes was a no. So how do you maintain the democratic principles, the democratic system of working in such a case?
Yeah. Two thoughts are occurring to me, Aisha. One is that we're very careful about what we put before the group. The school meeting is our governing entity. It's students and staff, and that group has delegated a great deal of responsibility and decision-making authority to its officials. And so sometimes it's very clear that a certain decision shouldn't go before the group. So, for example, when the facilities manager, the person who's responsible for repairs and maintenance, when they are going to, she recently replaced a light fixture, she didn't go to school meeting to get a vote on what fixture should she buy or what contractor should she hire to install it. That would be boring material for most people and shouldn't be the subject of any kind of political controversy. There's no issue of values at stake there, really. Well, no, that's not true. There can be values involved in anything. So the first part of the answer is that we're very careful about delegation and then observing those lines of authority. And then the second piece of it, I guess, which is very closely related, is the idea that if government is good enough, then most people, most of the time, don't want to be involved. So, for example, here in the US, when I ask adults, when was the last time you attended a local council meeting to vote there? Oh. And most people, most of the time, have no interest in going to vote on the things that are up for public discussion and vote. You go when there's something that's important to you, and the same is true here. So, the question of what happens. Let me move on to the second part of that question, which was what happens when one person votes no. I would say in most situations, not all, but in most situations, proposals are discussed. Actually, proposals ideally are discussed before it ever comes to a vote. That is, when someone is going to propose something new, the ideal is that first we start talking about it among ourselves, maybe over lunch. And the person who wants to propose it may get a lot of negative feedback and find that, well, nobody really wants to do that. And so the idea is never going to be formally proposed and won't go before the group for a vote. But on the other hand, what's more likely is there will be others who share that person's view, but they have ideas. We should do it this way, or we should do it this way, or no, don't do that, or don't do that. And so before it gets committed to writing and goes before the group for a vote, ideally, it has gone through that informal process of discussion. Many of the things that come before the group are going to be to address a need that has already been widely recognized. And so the question isn't so much, do we need to do something, as what should we do about it? And then someone makes a proposal, and it may get discussed and amended several times before it comes to a vote. So often things that come to a vote, there isn't much contest to them. But that's not always true. A couple of months ago, there was a proposal to create a rule about Roblox. Does Roblox mean anything to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very popular in Turkey as well, yeah.
Yes, okay. So Now we have in our law book already, we have rules about what's appropriate to view and do online and on computers.
Okay.
And those rules didn't really address Roblox. Roblox is a platform with over 100,000 games available in it.
Wow.
And so while Roblox itself has a rating, that isn't really relevant. The more relevant thing is what's the material within Roblox.
True.
And as you may know, there is much in Roblox that is appropriate for children of all ages, and there's an awful lot that is not.
True.
And so a rule was proposed to bring Roblox under the rule of the law book, and that was that one took us probably a good 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Before it came to a vote. And in the end, although many of the Roblox users were opposed to it at the outset, they were persuaded. They could see why we needed to have a rule. And so they understood the need. They would have preferred not to have regulation. But once that was accepted, then we began to negotiate and discuss on the floor of school meeting what provisions should we put into the rule and what shouldn't we. And there was a lot of compromise about one thing or another. When it came to a very final vote, Aisha, though, to answer your question, or the question that one of your followers posed, there was one no vote, one vote against it. And that was a vote by a young boy, an avid Roblox user, who just didn't want to budge on the position that anybody should be able to use anything except the most maturely rated games. So his view was that, for example, a 4 or 5-year-old ought to be able to view material that was rated for, say, 15 and 16-year-olds. And I think the rest of the group, after working with him for weeks, said, no, we just have to go ahead with this without that provision. And so there was one no vote on that very controversial subject, but it actually felt very satisfying to get that far, that everyone else was okay with regulating Roblox, and that we were able to find a solution that was satisfactory to everyone.
Okay, so what you're trying to do is that you're trying to do your best in these controversial situations to make sure that everyone is accommodated, is persuaded, that everyone's needs are met, right? So I don't think that there's one single way of addressing every need, addressing everyone's requirements. So everybody's doing their personal very best to make sure that everyone's happy.
Yes. Now, you can't make everyone happy.
Yeah.
And there are also situations where adults, from their perspective of experience and maturity and knowledge, know things and hold values that are very difficult to communicate to children. Yeah. Or to rebellious teenagers, for that matter. And so there are certainly times when controversial things are going to leave a number of people unhappy, but then they are free at any point to bring the matter back to school meeting's attention at some point in the future. They're free to propose amendments to rules that will improve them from their perspective. But yes, we're trying to hear every voice, if not satisfy every voice. And most of that work is not in the formal democratic systems. Most of that is just in person-to-person communication. That's relationships are everything, and the keeping open channels of communication and being authentic in our conversations is crucial. And so, even the very best democratic systems won't function if there isn't a good core of community, I guess is the way
Sure.
I would put it.
Yeah,
We've
that's
got,
true.
we're all part of a community, and we've got to have a certain amount of trust in one another.
Yeah. Before leaving the word to Mehmet, I have one more question. One of the phrases that you used at the very beginning was very critical. You said there's no curricular coercion at a democratic school. So, how, that was also a question in the book. How are the children going to learn if they don't have to follow a certain curriculum? What if, I mean, because in a democratic school environment, ideally, what a child is pursuing, is following what is of interest to him or her. So, but in life in general, there might be a certain set of skills and sets of knowledge that they have to acquire in order to be successful. So, how do you manage that?
Yeah, number of answers to that. One is that in the normal course of life, we encounter the basics, the things that in a curriculum would be considered basics.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't read, you're not going to function in society. And if we are successful in making the school a scaled down version of the larger world, then the inability to read is going to leave you out of lots of things here too. So reading and writing are so basic that
Mm-hmm.
you can't function. You can't have most people could not possibly have a personally fulfilling life, a life of meaning and purpose without acquiring those things. So the pressures of daily life here
Mm-hmm.
are plenty for kids to learn some of those things that we call the basics. Another perspective on this is that, to put it one way, it is harder, or no, let me say it this way, it's easier to teach math
Mm-hmm.
than it is to teach self-determination. It's easier to teach history than it is to teach one to manage one's own life. It's easier to teach literature than it is to teach someone how to be a friend and how to make friends and how to get along in community. I mean, right in the traditional education system, we think we're going to force kids to learn facts and knowledge and skills, and they're just going to pick up this other stuff somehow outside of the curriculum. But we're flipping that upside down and saying, no, no, no, no, no. It is just so easy. If you need to learn history, you go to the internet, you go to Wikipedia, or you go to some other online source. The skills of concentration, of how to find what you're looking for, the gumption to do what you know you want to do, those skills are much more valuable and much harder to learn. You can't teach those out of a book. You have to teach them, you have to do them. And you have to have many, many experiences, maybe some people, of being not a good friend. And you find out what that feels like and what that looks like. And from long experience over and over again, you figure out what's going to work for you in the world. You know, no two children are alike. Everyone's
True.
got their own strengths, their own weaknesses, their burdens, their aspirations and hopes. And there is no curriculum that can lead each child along a path that is optimum for them. A curriculum often is just going to divert a child from what's most productive and meaningful for them at the moment. So that's one way. That's a couple of ways of answering your question. But here's another sort of backwards way of saying it. Over 90% of our long-term students go on to college and do just fine. About 80-some% of our shorter term students who are here for 4 years or more go on to college as well and do just fine. We also know from a study that we did several years ago, it's a little out of date now, but what we found was that our graduates collectively held more degrees at every level, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral or professional degrees, more degrees than their same age peers from other kinds of schools, from conventional schools. So that's kind of a backwards way of putting it. What we're after here is not maximizing college attendance or maximizing degrees. What we really want is we want to make it possible for kids to grow into adults who are living personally fulfilling lives, engaged in the world. We want people who are deeply, deeply happy is a word I like to use. Not happy in the sense of fireworks or instant gratification, but happy in the sense of living meaningful lives of purpose that are deeply fulfilling.
The image that you're describing is really very motivating. It's giving hope to us. We might sound like we're questioning you very much, but I hope you're not misunderstanding us, because there have been some attempts in Turkey as well as in other countries about establishing schools and alternative education, establishing democratic schools. Some have been successful, some have not been successful. We have, as a society, a lot of issues with the democratic system itself, the tyranny of the majority, etc. So no matter, this book is not only talking about the principles, the basics of democratic schools, but it's also giving a lot of practical experiences, real life experiences that you have gone through. But despite all those truths and real life experiences, we still have a lot of questions about how applicable it would be in real life. So that's why we're asking a lot of such questions to you. So Mehmet, go ahead.
Aisha, I understand that, and you're asking the very same questions that American parents and observers ask of us. This is not unusual. We have to ask these questions and be able to answer them. I want to digress just for a moment. It's a real hoot, a thrill for me to see you hold up that book. I've never seen that cover before. This is the American version, and so this is what I have seen, and I've never seen that version. So thank you for that little delight.
I'm sorry, I thought your publisher had sent you some copies, but first thing tomorrow morning, I'll have some copies shipped to you.
Oh,
just send
thank
over
you.
the address. I'm sorry for that.
That would be quite a thrill. I knew that my publisher was working with you, but no, they didn't do that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's quite a thrill.
Great. So Mehmet, you had a question about leaving a lot of control to students.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Many questions. I'm trying to pick the most crucial ones because we have limited time.
Sure. Yeah.
While reading your amazing book, I just went back to my childhood, and in your book, you're saying that democratic school is the microcosmos of the real life. So I can say that my childhood also is like a microcosmos of democratic school in some aspects, because during my childhood in a rural area, the daily life we used to spend is really similar to the daily life of a democratic school you are describing in this book. What we were doing to learn is, first of all, to pick up a topic that we are interested. Could be feeding an animal, going bird hunting, or fishing, or like learning how to make a toy. And then we make a group with our friends. We say, hey, let's go. Would you like to learn how to make a toy, how to make this toy? They say yes. Then we make a group, and we find the right person in the village who can teach us this toy. And then we learn a lot from this toy maker, and then more children are joining us, and we socialize. We discover how to negotiate. Who is gonna use the toy first? Who is going to keep it at home for a while? What happens if it is broken, and how we can mend it? And a lot of negotiations, and we had a lot of time to play. which is very important in life, but which is very lacking in society, in today's society, that children suffering so much from the, of course, the frame of the curriculum and the expectations of the system, parents and school system. So considering you classifying the, I mean, the schooling periods in history as a traditional, modern and democratic, and now the whole approach based education. So considering also my education years, I was going to school, to very traditional schools with lots of discipline, of course, just like your team, I'm sure. And then some modern schools, and after that we started to question. And yes, we said I became a teacher, and I said, okay, we need to try a different way. So considering these the roles of the teachers in those school types, from the traditional to modern and until now, I can see that in democratic schools that the teachers are doing nothing. while in traditional schools, they were in the center of attention. They were ruling everything. They were the masters, the kings, the queens of the classroom. But now children are doing everything. And what does the teacher do in a typical democratic school? Yeah.
That's a great question, Mehmet. And you were very fortunate with the it sounds like with your early schooling. You mentioned feeding animals. I just want to show you something, if I can. I'm sitting in the library at the Circle School at the moment, and out the window, I don't know if you can see it, but out the window is a chicken coop.
Mhm.
We had a group work for 2 years to bring that about and bring chickens to the school. And, you know, they probably learned a lot about chickens, but I would say they learned more about the kinds of things you were describing, negotiating, how to get things done, how to find resources. So, you know, the chickens were the focus, but the education was broad. You're asking about the role of staff in a self-directed democratic school. An overall picture is that we have been working very hard in the last 2 years to find ways of making it so that it doesn't burn staff out. That is, it takes a lot of energy, and it's we are all extremely busy, and I think what we have done for most of the school's history has been too demanding, and in that sense probably couldn't be scaled up and rolled out, which is an important part of our mission, to demonstrate the feasibility of this. So quite to the contrary of the view that staff do nothing, we do a great deal. One of the things we do, of course, is just keep the school going. So that means paying the bills. It means dealing with tuition and keeping the facilities going, and all of that is a big job for any organization. But staff do all that. But the more important things that we do in terms of education and schooling is really hard to find words for. We're adult, mature, experienced, knowledgeable human beings who enjoy being in community with children. And our aim is to be authentic human beings in our interactions with kids. We want to be, we want to support children in what they are seeking to achieve. We don't want to rob them of autonomy and independence to the degree that they are ready for it and seizing it. We want to hold the culture to the values that we want to hold in the culture. We need to be the guardrails sometimes, keeping things from getting moving in one direction or another too far. So let me get specific, a little bit more specific here. We have a variety of committees and what we call corporations. These are groups that are in charge of various facilities. We have a cooking corporation that does several cooking contests and lots of other things during the school year. We have a library committee we have the folks who are working on the chicken project. We have a music studio and a music corporation. We have a very elaborate chore system. We have a very active group that organizes outdoor adventures. They go on hikes and occasionally overnight backpacking trips. And there are staff members involved in all of those, not directing them, but being part of them, to be available as resources, to guide them as they need guidance, to be an adult voice with greater knowledge and greater experience of what's possible, what's practical, can we do it, how can we do it, to answer that sort of question, and then to be part of it. So when there are cooking contests, there may be some staff members who are competing in the cooking contest. When there are outdoor adventures, of course, there are always staff members as part of that. Staff members are part of the judicial system. Staff members are the most active actually in school meeting, often, not always, but often. So we're not trying to be invisible. We're not trying to sit on our hands. The way one of my colleagues puts it is that we don't want to be neutered adults. We want to be real people and we enjoy being here and doing it. Occasionally, we are not, well, I guess it's probably more than occasionally, we're teaching classes. We're doing tutoring, one-on-one tutoring at the request of students. And some of the topics that we might be doing classes on might not look or sound like conventional classes, but these are things that students have expressed interest in, and that the adults here bring some special expertise in. Does that begin to answer your question, Mehmet?
Yes, yeah, I was, of course, being cynical, a little bit joking, because we are facing a very similar challenges in our alternative school called Arkadaş in Izmir. And I just wanted to learn, of course, your environment, what you are doing with this stuff. Of course, you describe everything in details in a beautiful way in your book. I have just finished it reading, but I wanted the other, of course, the listeners here, the watchers, to hear from you what this stuff is. I mean, what the whole community of the school, the microcosmos members doing in your school. And in this way, the picture is more clear now, and we know that all people are very much engaged in school management, in decisions, in teaching, learning process, and tutoring and everything. So yeah, so I can, the picture is clear on my mind now. Thank you for the nice explanation.
You're welcome. Sometimes people ask us, what is a typical day like for a student, or what is a typical day like for a staff member? And it's an almost impossible question to answer, because everybody's day is different. And for me, every day is different. Today we have a university scholar here studying what she calls the internal politics of young children's play. There aren't many places where scholars can observe children in play that isn't adult directed, but here you can. We have the founder of another democratic school with us today and yesterday who's observing. That we often have visitors here, and that makes each day different, but then each person's day is different too. We have some staff members are booked up. They're scheduled all day long to be with students doing one thing or another. And then other staff members spend much of their time in the office on a particular day. And then some of us even spend time talking to people who are overseas in an Instagram live stream. So there is no such thing. There is no such thing as a typical day. And the same is true for students. Some kids come in and they like to have a fully scheduled day. Others never want to do any scheduling at all. Some people are outdoors a lot. I was invited outside to play soccer with a small group of girls a little while ago, and I had to decline this time, but I hope to get out there and play soccer later on. Some people like to be indoors and don't like to be outdoors. It's just, it's life. We're practicing life.
Right. One of the remarks that you...
Aisha, can I?
Sure, yeah.
Can I? More, please. Yeah, I'm really, as you said, because there is no curriculum, specific curriculum, no frames, and it's so the children's demands and ideas are endless, and so how can you meet those enormous amount of demands? Because some demands need some equipment, some environment physically, and they can ask for lots of things, So I really wonder what you have in your school. I mean, in the campus or stuff like that. What kind of workshops do you have, or do you have workshops, or how do you meet those demands of the children? Or not maybe they are trying to find a way to find by themselves to provide what they need, but you have to be somehow helpful or giving some advice for that. Maybe I don't know the situation exactly.
When we take on students who have come from a conventional background, they look to adults for a lot of guidance and direction because that's what they're accustomed to. Mm-hmm. But when we get a 4-year-old who has never been in school before, they hit the ground running. They don't have much need for adults at all. They will be occupied from the time they arrive till the time they leave. And what they need us for is to create a safe environment. But they're not asking us to do much at all. This morning, I saw that that university scholar who is here was watching a group of 5 or 6 young people. Age range was probably about 5 years old to 9 years old. And they were sitting around a table doing artwork and doing something else. I couldn't tell exactly what it was, and I didn't want to interfere. But they were on their own. They didn't ask an adult to help them set it up. They didn't need adult guidance. So yes, the ideas are endless, and some small fraction of them do require or are enhanced by adult participation, but a great many are not. It's the more organized activities that adults are plugging into more often. Yeah, the ideas are definitely endless, and we have a position we call the External Resources Coordinator. When a student is pursuing an interest, and when they have pursued it, when they've exhausted the resources that are here on campus, which could be people resources, or it could be materials, or books, or it could be the workshop. When they've exhausted the resources that are here, then the External Resources Coordinator may be able to connect them with some outside resource. Some of our older students are enrolled in college classes in their last year or two here, sometimes online, sometimes they travel to the college. Sometimes we've done internships where a student with an interest in a particular kind of business or activity may be off campus for part of the week. So we don't have to be experts on everything. If we're experts on anything, I suppose it's in connecting people to resources, facilitating when we can. But it's we are much more important as resources in being examples of how to be an adult, of how to interact with people, of how to run a meeting, of self-motivation. As models, examples of that, I think our role is far more important than answering specific queries from students.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the remarks you made earlier was really very moving. You said it's easier to teach history than to teach how to be a good friend or how to be self-directing. So we've got this traditional education, and then there are different ways of education and schooling, you know, different than democratic schools. Democratic school is just one of those alternative methods. So for you, why is it specifically the democratic educational system? How different is it from the other alternative systems?
I think to me, I would emphasize the word self-directed probably more than democratic. When we say democratic, it often calls to mind government systems. And while the way we govern is, of course, vitally important, the governance system is probably more important to adults who pay attention to government systems than it is to most people most of the time, and certainly to kids. So to me, the self-direction part is probably what I would emphasize even more. There are other forms of self-directed education that I think very highly of. What many of them lack is the community element. We say that we have two of our highest ideals are personal fulfillment and engagement in society. That is, we think that education is about elevating self and society. And this kind of schooling engages both of those. There are many other forms of self-directed education, and again, I have utmost respect for them. And the community element of it is crucial. I think we are fond of saying that we educate through community. That is, it's the demands and the opportunities of being part of a group of people who are connected, who come together in person. I'm not talking about virtual communities, which are a different kind of community altogether, that create different demands. They're more transient and so on. But I think the community piece of it is why I choose this.
Great. So it's been an hour that we've started talking. Let me just ask another one of the audience questions before we come to closure. How do you handle the unwanted thoughts, behaviors of children which they learn from outside of the school, like gender roles or any others?
I'm not sure I'm getting the gist of that question. How do we handle the what was that?
The unwanted thoughts or behaviors of children that they learn from outside of the school, like gender roles or any others.
Aha.
Yeah.
I suppose the primary way we do that is by holding a culture here that first of all expresses and lives the values that we want to live, but doesn't tolerate antisocial behaviors. Now, that's not to say we're going to reject the person, but we're going to reject the behavior. The most powerful way we do that, I think, again, is in community. It's informally. When someone utters a racial slur, for example, we hope that the response they get is that the people around them reject it and let them know very clearly that this is an unacceptable way to behave in public. And then the secondary way we do it would be through our formal systems, through our judicial system. We have rules that attempt to enforce the values we want to hold, but rules only go so far. It really the burden is on the community to hold the values we want to hold, and this is not unique to democratic schools, or I mean it's true in every culture and community. So how do we control the unwanted behaviors is fairly easy. Unwanted thoughts, we're not trying to get into people's heads and dictate what to think, but we're certainly wanting to give them a real world experience, scaled down to be developmentally appropriate, but a real world experience of what happens when you express unwanted thoughts, when you express thoughts of hate, or when you express thoughts that are somehow in any way not accepting of the people around you. And that's sort of a fundamental for democracy, not in the sense of governing system, but democracy in the sense of a community of people living together in equal respect.
I see. So we've
Before we say goodbye, Mehmet, is there one last question that you'd like to pose to Jim?
I would like to ask the question, my son.
As a thinker, a philosopher, maybe a lawyer. That's a terrific question. And here's our answer to that. And other democratic schools may do this differently. But we have a board of trustees who are bound to hold certain things about the school. And the main ones are that they're required by what we call our bylaws, it's like a constitution, to preserve school meetings governing autonomy, to preserve students' civil liberties, and to preserve the school's long-term assets and interests. And so school meeting is subject to certain policies that our Board of Trustees has adopted. For example, one of the policies says that school meeting may not buy or sell real estate. So school meeting could vote to sell the school campus and split up the proceeds and pay everybody a big payout. But they can't do that. The Board of Trustees would step in and say, no, you're violating this policy. You're not allowed to do that. So the answer for your son is that the Board of Trustees, in our case, it's 7 people. Their job is to make sure that things like your son is proposing don't happen.
Out of discussion.
So the primary objective is to keep the school open and running and be sustainable, right?
Yes, and the way we say that is that the trustees are acting on behalf of all persons everywhere and throughout time who support the school's purposes. So they have an obligation not just to Mehmet's son, but also to Mehmet's great-grandchildren.
Uh-huh. Wow.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
I carried it, my son. Okay, thank you.
Great.
Mehmet and Aisha, I very much enjoyed talking with you.
Thank
you for your great questions.
Likewise, thank you very much. We really appreciate you accepting this interview. So to wrap up, this was the beautiful book, the subject point of our discussion today, Çocuklar Okulu Yönettiğinde When Kids Rule the School, written by dear Jim Rietmulder here, who was with us. We've discussed the book, Democratic Schools, Principles, Challenges, Practical Experiences, and Examples. We are going to put this live meeting on our Instagram feed, and then hopefully very soon I'm going to try to put subtitles to that and post it so that people, a lot more people can understand. This was the first time we have had an interview about with the authors of one of our translated books. So once again, we really appreciate your participation. Thank you very much. I'm sure that once we put this on our Instagram feed in a few weeks, we're going to have a lot of questions, follow-up questions about the book and about democratic schools in general. So if you don't mind, I am going to perhaps address them to you in an email, or maybe we can have a follow-up meeting if it's okay with you as well later.
That would be wonderful, Aisha, yes. And I hope you get lots and lots of questions.
I hope so too. I think it's really important to keep the discussion running so that, you know, we can develop the system, our schooling system, the way we handle our challenges, the way we handle our problems, or experience sharing, whatever we're doing well, we can share that experience so that everybody benefits that at the end of it. So once again, thank you very much, and hope to be in touch.
Thank you.
And Mehmet, thank you very much as well. And there was one last question. Can we share this post on our pages? Yes, please. We'd really appreciate it. Do you want to tell us the Instagram account of the Circle School, maybe, so that if anyone watching would like to follow?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know exactly what it is. I assume it's at Circle School.
Okay, I'll put that.
I'm not certain of that.
I'll put that in the description when I post this video. So
okay.
Thank you very much, and hope to speak soon.
You're
Bye-bye.
very welcome. Best wishes.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.